Oh joy, Canada's homegrown Islamist, Mr. Khadr, is coming back to Toronto, and hey, I think I'm experiencing deja vu.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about.
Oops, wrong Mr. Khadr. Still, doesn't that groovy intro make you pine for the 70s? You know, when the bad apples were sweat hogs like Barbarino and Epstein and Washington and Horshack. They weren't jihadists hell-bent on carrying out acts of terrorism. They were just lovable losers. Okay, I stand corrected. Nobody loved Arnold Horshack. It was that bloody laugh. But hey folks, Horshack got what was coming to him in that Oscar bait known as Friday the 13th, Part 6. Oh, that's gotta hurt, but definitely my favorite Friday the 13th. But speaking of homicide, folks, it's that other Khadr, as in Omar, who's being welcomed back by some, that is concerning. And make no mistake, we're not talking a cheesy TV sitcom or a monster movie here. No, this is as real as it gets. But wait a minute, you say, didn't Omar's bail conditions mean he had to wear an electronic monitoring bracelet, and that he would have to stay away from his family members, and that he couldn't speak to his family in a language other than English? Well, those conditions were recently, let's see, waived. Alberta Judge June Ross found that those stipulations were unusually restrictive, especially since Omar wants to return to Hogtown to visit his ailing grandmother. Okay, I don't think that is Granny Khadr, but hey, it could be. Those Khadr women, they like to don the Islamic beekeeper suit, so who's to say who's behind that veil? But I digress, for it looks as though the media party has notched another victory at the expense of common sense and justice. After all, we've endured more than a decade of Khadr being portrayed as an innocent schoolboy, and now it looks like those who have a say over a dangerous offender such as Judge Ross have consumed the Khadr Kool-Aid, buying into such a nauseating narrative, hook, line, and stinker. Indeed, I was in a doctor's office recently waiting. Don't worry folks, the Menzoid is going to live, but because it was a doctor's waiting room, there's an unwritten law that no magazine can be published in the current calendar year. Now, normally that would irk me, but not this time, for I came across an absolutely fascinating Toronto Life article that I must have missed when it was published a few years ago. And this periodical time capsule gives us insight as to how the media and the legal community have rebooted Omar Khadr from terrorist to misunderstood schoolboy. The article in question was a Q&A with criminal defense lawyer Bridie Bethel, Omar's former legal eaglet. And I must say, Bridie almost comes across like a caricature, an upwardly mobile, progressively liberal, bleach blonde litigator who has never met a crook she didn't think was innocent, as long as the check for the retainer doesn't bounce. In fact, I think we may have a clip of Bridie in action.
We're defending Brooke Window. You can buy her exercise tapes on infomercials.
Wait! Exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't shoot their husbands. You're fired.
Actually, I think that was an excerpt from Legally Blonde, but hey, I can't tell the difference. In any event, the navel-gazing article in Toronto Life is as astonishing as it is nauseating, but it provides some insight into how the elites are reimagining little Omar. For starters, every question by interviewer Malcolm Johnson is a lob ball. And naturally, every answer is lovingly hit out of the park by Omar's solicitor. But what's truly beyond the pale is that both interviewer and interviewee seem to be working on the presumption that there's absolutely no question about Khadr's innocence. He's a poor kid that got screwed by the system, even though he did confess to murder. Some of Bridie's answers are perversely ironic. For example, when she's asked, "What do you talk about with Omar?" her answer is this, quote, At the start, he often asks about the news and what's happening in my life. My dad died recently and I started running. I guess it was a way for me to deal with my grief. He thought it was so cool that Toronto practically shuts down for marathons. I've asked him if he'll run one day with me. I'm sure he'd kick my butt. Ooh, isn't that special, folks? It almost seems that little Omar's solicitor has a crush on him. And when Bridie says, I'm sure he'd kick my butt, she doesn't know the half of it. It's been well documented that during his time in Gitmo Bay, Khadr was disgustingly sexist and racist to those prison guards who were visible minority females. Still, my heart goes out to Bridie regarding the passing of her father, but wouldn't the obvious follow-up question be this? How do you feel about the fact that Christopher Spears' children are growing up without their father, thanks to Omar Khadr? Oh, but no way, folks. Instead, Johnson asks, what are Omar's hopes beyond getting out? And the answer, by the way, is this, quote, he wants to be normal, pay his bills, go shopping. He wants to go to school and eventually study medicine. He wants a book bag because that's what he associates with school. Isn't that sweet? He wants a book bag. It gets better. Next question, he's 26. In some ways, is he still a child? And the answer from the lawyer is this, well, I think all males are immature, but Omar is very wise, and I keep marveling at his gentle spirit. He also has a remarkable emotional maturity. When he's scared or sad, he copes by reading or doing his homework. Omar has been reading one book from every province. For Ontario, he read In the Skin of a Lion. He liked Who Has Seen the Wind by W.O. Mitchell. I'm from Saskatchewan, so he asked me if I spent a lot of time in fields as a little girl. I swear, folks, I'm not making any of this up. These are verbatim quotes. Then we get into the shoot the messenger department. Question. The Sun TV pundit Ezra Levant believes Khadr has duped you into thinking he's harmless. Is that possible? Bridie's answer, dupe me? Well, Levant should meet my mother. She'll tell him that I'm not easily duped, and for Levant to draw wild conclusions, having never met Omar, is ridiculous. This is my job. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I deal with accused murderers and drug dealers all the time. Sorry, Bridie, but most people never got to meet schoolgirl killer Paul Bernardo or Clifford Olson, but I think it's fair to assume those are insidious individuals too. One of the last questions pertains to little Omar's kinfolk, but in Bridie's eyes, they aren't members of Canada's Al-Qaeda family. They're practically the Brady Bunch wearing ninja costumes. Question, is his mother as militant and angry as media reports suggest? And this is Bridie's answer. I found her to be incredibly warm. I'm Ukrainian, so I'm used to family members who are very tactile, in your face. Lots of, why aren't you eating? You're not fat enough. Lots of touching, even my flab. I found her strangely familiar in that way. Yikes. Sorry, Bridie. But how does that saying go? You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And sorry for that non-halal reference. Bottom line, after finishing the Q&A, I found myself confused. Who do I have the most contempt for? Omar Khadr, his lawyer, the willfully blind journalist who conducted the interview, or Toronto Life itself for publishing such pornography? Or is it the people in positions of judicial power who let loose such rancid garbage? I still don't have an answer, folks. For TheRebel.Media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies.